Hi everyone, I'm Marie, the Director of Product Development and Marketing at Floor and Half.
I'm Brittany, the Director of Client Success.
We are your hosts for the Property Management Show. Thank you so much for listening. Today's guest is a very, very special person. Her name is Chrysztyna Rowek, and you may or may not know her, but she is the owner of Lighthouse Cove Property Management in Washington State and a very, very active person at NARPM.
Yeah, Chrysztyna's done everything from clean houses to buy the property management company she used to work at and then acquire other property management companies from there. So our goal for the listeners today is to share her experience and the lessons she learned along the way.
So if you want to learn what not to do when buying property management companies, stay tuned.
So before we get into the gist of it, I was just wondering, could you give us a little bit of a backstory about how you came to own Lighthouse Cove Property Management?
By accident, really. And I say this in all my classes that I teach, I'm supposed to be teaching your kids how to speak Spanish. That's what I went to school for.
Did you really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. So my degree is in Hispanic education. Basically, my goal was I went to school in Canada. I was born in Canada. I moved to Greece. I lived in Greece till I was 8, came back to Canada, went to school. And my goal was to come to the States and to either teach kids Spanish or teach Spanish-speaking kids English. And so I was doing some research into different places in the United States where I wanted to move to do this. In my search, I met a husband and got married to a American sailor who was stationed in Georgia. So I ended up moving to Georgia, and then I was going to go start my teaching. I was all excited,
Right.
Except for my degree, they told me wasn't quite good enough for the United States because, it's Canada. So what do we know up there? And so they wanted me to go back to school, but I would be going back to school as a graduate student and as an international student. And so already, just graduate classes are expensive, but
Right.
International tuition is 3 times as much because I don't have a green card yet. So I ended up saying, I'll just wait till I get my green card and then I'll go back to school then. So 3 years later, I get my green card. Well, by this time, we've moved to Washington and I have a 6-month-old. And so I'm not going to go back to school because I have a baby and I'm not going to go to school and leave my baby behind. So I was like, well, I guess teaching just isn't supposed to be for me. So I stayed home with my daughter, which was amazing. I got to do that for a couple years and then decided that I really wanted to do something for some extra money. And we were living on base at the time. And I had friends that were cleaning houses on military bases, making really good money. So I was like, I can do this. My mom has OCD. I learned how to clean a house by the time I was 7. So I was like, this is easy money. And so I did. I started cleaning houses on base. And then about a year later, there was a property management company out in town who had gotten my name from somebody, and I ended up cleaning all their rentals. And it was really cool because I got to take Angelica with me.
Aww.
Yeah, so she never had to go to daycare or have anybody watch her.
Yeah,
I could work at night.
what a deal.
When she was going into first grade, it was 2006, and I was getting divorced from her dad. And the lady who owned the property management company had asked me if I wanted to come and actually work in the office for her. I'd been cleaning for her for about 4 or 5 years now. And so she wanted to know if I wanted to come in and do that. And I said, yeah, sure. I needed a more kind of a routine because Angelica was starting school. And so, I was going to work while she was in school. And so I started as a receptionist, assistant property manager, I guess, September 2006. And I got my real estate license in March of 2007. And then I bought her company in 2007, in July.
So how did that happen? How did you,
She wanted to sell it. And she said she wanted to sell it to me and, blah, blah, blah. I don't know that she actually ever really wanted to sell it, but, I had a kid and I was getting divorced and I had to do something, you know what I mean? I needed to be able to provide a life for her.
Right.
And so I was like, well, I'm doing this now, I'm it's not super difficult.
Like, I know how to do this
I know
now.
how to do this.
Yeah.
But I really didn't. Like,
I know you always think you know how to do something until you do it.
Yeah, I really didn't, but it was what I was doing. And so it seemed, pretty logical that I'd do that. I talked to my dad, who is amazing and instilled a great work ethic in me. And I was going to get an SBA loan, and I had done all the paperwork, and I was talking to him about it. And he was like, well, if you're going to borrow money, he's like, why don't you just borrow it from me? So yeah, my dad lent me the money to buy Lighthouse Cove. And so that purchase was finalized July 17th, 2007. And I had my license for 2 months at that time. Yeah.
So now it's 12 years later.
Now it's 12 years later. But yeah, at the time, like, I really didn't know what I was doing at all. Not to say I'm like really sure of what I'm doing right now either, but back then I really didn't know. But I knew that I had to do something, and I knew that I had a little kid that needed food and like a life.
You went for it.
And kind of. And I just like, I worked as hard as I possibly could to figure out what I was doing, and made lots and lots and lots of mistakes along the way. I was really lucky that I had good people surrounding me, from the start, that were helpful. And then I found NARPM like in 2008, which was a godsend.
Right.
Because then I was able to reach out to all these different resources. So yeah, I started out, when I bought Lighthouse Cove, it had about 190 properties, 190 doors, all single family, some small multiplexes, but nothing crazy. And then 2 years later, and it was not like, let me explain, like, it wasn't, I'm making it sound like it was all really an easy transition. It wasn't. The lady that I bought it from made my life an eternal hell for a long time. So
we want to know more about that.
Well, I think I said that she didn't really want to sell. I think she wanted to dangle the carrot.
Yeah.
That she wanted to sell it, but I don't think that she ever actually thought I would walk into her office with a check and be like, here you go. When can we close?
And she couldn't say no to that at that time.
It was a cash offer.
Right.
How do you say no to that? But I really don't think she expected. She didn't know anything about me. All she knew was I was this bleach-covered girl that came to the office to turn in invoices. You know what I mean? And I was a single mom. But
now you have a huge check that you're handing to her, being like, "Let's do this."
Exactly.
Wow.
So she didn't help me very much. When we started, there was really no advice on how to run a business or how to run this business. And so I was just doing what I knew I needed to do without really knowing it. But there was a lot of pushback from her. And 2 years and 2 days after she sold it to me, which was exactly 2 days after her non-compete expired, she opened up another property management company in my old office in the same town.
So I'm curious though, the person who sold you Lighthouse Cove, was this person still involved in any of the operations during the time there was a non-compete in place?
No. She was originally supposed to move. She was supposed to move out of town to a different state she wanted to retire and be closer to her kids. That ended up not happening. She ended up starting to work for a company doing real estate sales, kept in touch with all of my owners for 2 years because she was doing sales, and then opened up her own company with my client list.
So she took them all?
Well, she didn't take them all. But she definitely was making sure that she kept in touch with all of them, and that they all knew where she was.
It was an easy decision to make when they weren't happy or whatever.
And there's denials about all of this, but when in an average 6-month period, let's say you lose, as a property management company, you lose, let's say 10, okay, just for ease of numbers. You use 10 properties. 5 of them are going to sell. The owners want to sell.
Yep.
Okay. 2 of them, owners want to self-manage. Okay.
All right.
one or two people are moving back in, and then you're going to lose maybe one or two to another company because it's just not a good fit. That's normally how that breakdown will happen if you ask any property manager. But when you lose 10 and 8 of them go to another company, and you start to think about the reasons why.
Just to clarify, when you bought the company originally, was the previous owner there for like 30 days afterwards? Was there any transition, or?
So she was supposed to stay on as my managing broker until I got my managing broker's license. So in Washington, you have to have 2 years with your broker's license.
Okay.
Or you can take your managing broker exam. So unless I could find another managing broker or I took my exam, she was going to stay on. But I will tell you, we signed paperwork on July 17th. The last time I saw her in person was in August, and the last time I had a conversation with her was in September.
Wow.
That
so
was
when
it.
You say you had to kind of figure it out, you really had to.
I really had to figure it out. I really had to figure it out. And then I was able to find another managing broker December timeframe, and finally was able to like really completely cut all ties that I had with her.
Now, obviously in this situation, not obviously, but maybe in this situation it was better that way, so you could just get your bearings and move on. In an ideal scenario, how long would the previous owner stay on and help the new owner through?
In an ideal situation, I'll tell you what I will do if and when the time comes that I sell Lighthouse Cove. I will have it in my contract that whoever buys it will have access to me for at least 90 days, minimum 90 days. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that sounds reasonable too.
Yeah, if not 120, you know what I mean? I don't think 3 months to 6 months, but this needs to start, that involvement needs to start before those papers are signed. You know what I mean? Like there's a way to transition any kind of company transfer properly, whether it's property management or anything. There's a way to do that, and signing paperwork and then booking it the next day is not it. You know what I mean? You need to come in to that business and you need to learn that business ahead of time, and you need to start building relationships with the clients along with the person who's there already, because that's who they trust. And if they trust that person and that person is telling them to trust you, then they're going to trust you. You know what I mean? But if it's just literally a cut and dry, and that's what I see a lot of, and I know there's reasons for it that are created by people smarter than me, but there's such a division, and it's such an abrupt division when a company is sold.
People are loyal. I mean, especially when you work with somebody for a really long time, the longer you work with them, the more loyal you become. And somebody new comes in, you don't know how they're going to run the company. They might seem very nice in the beginning, but who knows what's going to happen 6 months down the line. Yeah. So I completely get where you're coming from.
Yeah. So that's ideally what would have been nice to have happened. Am I happy that, it happened the way that it did? I think it definitely made me face challenges early that I'm glad that I did, because I learned from them. And it just kind of gave me the realization that, my dad was right. I can do anything I put my mind to.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask a question. So to piggyback on the idea that, the owner clients have been working with a set number of people for how many years, and then one day this new person comes in, aside from the original owner of the company, how big was the team when you acquired it?
There was only 3 of us. So there was the owner, there was an accounting manager, I guess 4. Then there was me, and then there was another person who kind of did everything. And I kept both of them. I kept the 2 staff members on. In fact, one of them is still with me. Oh, the accounting manager is still with me. But yeah, I kept the staff. I kept the office for a very short period of time. She owned the office, and that went south very quickly too. So I had to very quickly, educate myself on commercial real estate and commercial leases and find myself a new spot. But I did. And so we weren't a huge team. We were just a little team. And one of the big pluses was that with a lot of the clients, I had cleaned their house when they moved out. And so they knew me just in a different capacity.
Right. I see. And so when you acquired the property management company, did you keep the cleaning company or did you sell it off?
I kept it for probably the first 9 months. I was doing both. So I was property managing during the week and then cleaning houses on the weekends, because I was also in the middle of getting a divorce and stuff, and finances and all that. Yep. So I did both, and then it got to the point where I kept getting sick. I got pneumonia one time, and it never quite went away for probably about a year and a half. It would get, because I couldn't stay home. I couldn't take the time that I needed to stay home and recover fully. So I would get better. I'd get well enough that I thought, I'll just go into the office. And so I would do that. And then I would just be back, So yeah, it was about a year and a half of sick after I bought it. But yeah, I kept cleaning till probably the following summer. And then I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common. A lot of people in the industry overextend themselves and don't really take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And, if you are leading a company to growth, to success, it's important to take care of yourself, right? Because if you're always feeling not 100%, then how can you expect to give the top-notch service or to even think about strategy, right?
Oh, no, absolutely. Absolutely.
How long was it before you started to kind of recover from the properties that you lost? Were you growing while you were losing?
Yeah. And the thing is, by the time that all of that happened, I had bought another property management company.
Okay. So
in 2009, I bought a book of business from our local real estate office. And so that gave me about 120, 125 properties plus 100-unit multifamily. So we went from and I had grown in the 2 years, I had grown Lighthouse Cove I probably added about 50 properties to it. So not a ton, but we're also a small community.
And that was just organically, just
organically. Yeah. And so we went from 200, let's say 230, 240 properties to over 500 with one purchase. So we moved to a bigger office and I hired some more staff. And that purchase was better than the first one. It still had its bumps, but it was a lot better in terms of the way that the transfer happened and the way that the company had been set up and just different things. My mistake that I made with that one was I didn't look at any of the properties.
Oh.
So I got a lot of garbage with that one. But it was what it was. So by the time she was doing that and she had taken some of my owners away, I was already so way past the amount that I had started with it. The loss it stung, but it wasn't detrimental to my business.
Right.
Yeah. And so you obviously learned a lot of things from the first acquisition that helped you get a better deal for the second acquisition. However, you mentioned something interesting. You said that one big mistake you made was you did not check out any of the properties. Mm-hmm. And so what would you say, how would you do that? You can't drive, to every single property. Or can you?
What do you do?
Well, with the last company that I bought, I did that. I mean, I didn't go to all of them, but I went to a good third of them. Just drove by the outside, just to see, what they look like, if there's any, deferred maintenance, if you're driving by houses and the recurring theme is, ooh, this one needs a new roof, ooh, this one needs to be painted, ooh, this one, the yard looks like crap, then it's more than just you have a bad tenant or one bad owner. It's that maybe you're picking up owners that are not really willing to do work on their properties. And, you're getting a bunch of C-class properties along with C-class owners. Because one of the things that I always say is I will pick up C-class properties all day long if they have A-class owners.
Yeah.
So how would you distinguish, A owners that have C properties?
Yeah, how do you know what you're buying?
Yeah.
Well, an A property owner with a C-class property makes sure that his C-class property is still safe, habitable, clean, all of the things that it needs to be. Not all properties are going to be the Taj Mahal. They're not all going to be fancy palaces. They're not all going to be, water view properties in Malibu, but everybody needs a place to live. And that's fine. It's fine if the property is kind of dumpy because it's old or because, it's dated, but it's still safe and it's still clean and it's still up to code. And the owner realizes that they're going to have to put money in it over time. So let's get it to where it's safe and habitable and clean right now. And then let's work on doing everything that we need to do over the next, 2 to 4 to 5 years to make this property a valuable investment for this person's portfolio. But you can have people who have $1 million homes and they don't want to do anything.
Yeah.
I've met with these owners. They have these $1 million beautiful homes and they're arguing over like putting in a new fridge and wanting to get a refurbished fridge for this house that's going to rent for like $4,000. You can't do that. Like your $4,000 rental needs a fridge that's going to be a $4,000 rental house's fridge, not some crap you got at the thrift store that may or may not work in a week. So that, for me, that's the big difference. Like none of the properties, not none of the properties, there was a good amount of the properties that in the second book that I bought that the owners had perhaps been led to believe that we're just going to keep collecting rent, not really doing anything. And, the quality of the rental and the quality of the tenants is going to be kind of down here, but, we're just going to kind of milk it along.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to do business like that.
No.
I think every property, whether it rents for $600 or $6,000, should be treated the same. Should be just as clean, just as safe, just as appealing and attractive to the people who can afford it.
That makes total sense. So it's not about the number of doors you're acquiring, it's about the quality. And so how does that play into the deal, the purchase agreement? If, you're doing your due diligence before you're closing the sale of the company and you're investigating, the mix of owners, the mix of properties to drive by. And so if you find out that, hey, there's a bit too much of the C properties with C owners, like, is that a deal breaker? Like, how do you then decide how to move forward?
It's really going to depend on what you want to deal with and what you want to put your staff through. You know what I mean? Because they're the ones who are going to be doing onboarding of tenants who are unhappy. A, because something is changing, because many people don't like change to begin with. B, owners who are used to not spending any money, and now you're going to do an initial walkthrough and you're going to hit them with a punch list of 20 items that they need to do. And they're going to be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. The last person didn't tell me I needed to do anything. And now you're telling me I have to do all these things. Obviously I need to manage the property myself. So it depends on what you want to put into it to do. I will be really 100% honest. I have bought 3 companies in the last 12 years. I honestly think that I could have taken all the money that I paid for these 3 companies and been twice as big as I am now with just organic growth.
Oh, so that's an interesting concept because there's always this debate between, what's the best way to grow? Mm-hmm. Is it organic? Is it purchasing a company? But then there gets this confusing scenario where, but then how do you find properties to buy? How do you find property management companies to buy? How do you know which ones are good, so on and so forth? Mm-hmm. So do you regret growing via acquisition?
Well, I will tell you that in 12 years, I have spent probably $600,000 on property management companies, on books of business, and on acquiring properties. You guys do marketing. How much marketing would $600,000 get me in 3 companies? You know what I mean? Like, and these are the things, especially with this last purchase that I did in 2017, that I am currently in the middle of a lawsuit that is going to trial for.
Wow.
That is
Yeah.
what I think of every day. Was it worth it? Was it
Right.
worth it?
Because growing organically definitely takes a little bit more time, but you can be more choosy with the properties you take on, and you can invest time back into hopefully encouraging the owners that you love to work with to buy more properties
Mhm.
too.
Well, the thing
So,
is, it may take more time, but maybe not.
yeah,
Because if you get into the market where you should be, if you're in with the investors, if you're going to the meetings where you're the only property manager in these like people who manage their own properties groups, and you're the only face that they see month in and month out,
exactly. Yes.
like you have to be smart about where you spend your marketing money and where you
Right.
spend your dollars. I don't know that the growth is any less than if you buy a book of business. Like buying a book of business will give you more properties like right away. Like
Right.
you'll have 20 in a day, you know what I mean, as opposed
Yeah.
to 20 in maybe 2 months. But then again, you have tenants to onboard and you don't know what kind of tenants they are. You don't know if they would pass your kind of screening criteria or not. You don't know if the past, property manager did a good job with onboarding those tenants. You don't know what that properties looked like when they moved in unless they have really good condition reports. And if there's one thing that I have seen over the last 12 years is the entire gamut of what constitutes a move-in condition report. Everything from literally a page that says all is good, literally 3 words, all is good.
That's
And
good. I'm glad that all is good.
not signed by anybody.
Congratulations.
Okay, yeah,
Wow.
just all is good. To like my move-in condition reports are ridiculous. Like they're 100 pages long with 400 pictures.
Right.
They're crazy. Nobody's taken me to court for anything.
Yeah.
Like for
Like here you go. This is what we have. Yeah.
here's your booklet on your property. But it's things like that. And then it's the owners. You have to build that relationship that maybe that owner had a different relationship with the person before you, and maybe that person was willing to do stuff for them and maybe you're not. And now you're stuck having to be okay with maybe getting a less of a management fee or making a certain concession for this owner or this owner because they were the cousin, brother, uncle, son-in-law, roommate, or whatever of the past person. So I don't know. I mean, there are people who tell you that, acquisitions, and that's awesome. If it works for them, I am glad that they have obviously a much better system to do it than I did, because they're obviously smarter than I am at buying businesses. But for me, I think that organic growth, if you do it right, can be way less stressful.
Right. And also defining what organic growth is too, because like you said, there's so many different ways to market.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You have websites, you have pay-per-click, but you do so much more than that. You are like a huge networker, and that makes, like you were saying, just getting your face out there makes even more of an impact, and it impacts everything else that you do too.
Well, my whole thing is if you are educating people on something, you know what I mean? And I train my staff to do this, and I train the people in my classes. You are the professional. Act like it. Yeah. Act like it. If you are the professional in whatever it is you do, every place that you touch, they should know that. You should be the go-to person for everybody. I am the go-to person for everybody in my life that needs anything having to do with a rental property. Anything. Why? Because I tell you, my 1,400 or whatever friends on Facebook all know exactly what I do.
Right.
You know
and
what I mean?
It's not people going to Google and typing in Silverdale Property Management. It's people going and typing in Chrysztyna, which, by the way, we Googled you yesterday, and
I am the only one.
I Googled your first name only, and only you showed up.
Yep, I am the only one.
First page. Your girl.
My name's Brittany. There are a lot of us out there.
Yeah, no, I am the only one that you will find if you pop in my name in Google, which is fine. It's great for me.
Right. So they know who you are. They know where to find you. Yeah, that's really interesting. Just touching on this subject a little bit more, we were, as you know, Danny moved back to Australia where he's expanding our horizons there. And one of the things that we keep talking about recently is, as he's talking to prospects and trying to determine if we can fit their needs, what he's finding is that a lot of property management companies in Australia prefer acquisition over organic growth. They don't even think about it. I mean, I'm sure there are some that do, but just the ones that he's been talking to. So he's been learning a lot about that too. My question with that is, if you're only growing by acquiring, how do you account for the properties that you lose when you acquire a business? Because you are bound to lose some with each of the purchases you've made. How is there like a percentage where you say typically you lose this percent to this percent, and do you factor that into the cost of the deal? Do you factor that into what you're paying?
You should absolutely factor it in. And I guess the magic number that I have heard, and it seems to fit even with my experience, is 10%. You're going to lose 10% of clientele whenever you make a change. That's not necessarily when you change property management companies. That's when you make any kind of change. Like, for example, I just rolled out a new property management agreement at the beginning of this year. I am expecting to lose 10% of my clients because we have a change in terms. There's some fee changes. It's just a change. Some people just don't like change, or some people wait for a change to be brought to their attention before they make a decision that they've been wanting to make for a long time anyways, or whatever. So it's always a good rule of thumb to keep that in mind. 10% is what you're bound to lose whenever you make a change.
Yeah. And one more question on that topic. A second ago, you also mentioned the price. Like, if you changed the price, how often, well, in the companies that you've purchased, do you typically have to bring the management price up? And do you do that when you first take it over?
Well, so in the first one, I didn't do anything because I just bought a pre-existing company.
Right. Yeah.
And then the second one, the fees were about the same. So I didn't really do anything different because the fees were about the same. This last one, the fees were lower, and I kept them the same for about a year and a half until I rolled out a new property management agreement, and then I raised their fees accordingly, based on what they were paying. I raised them not quite to what my existing clients in this county were paying, but closer to where it was because they were a little bit lower. And again, it also depends on what the industry is doing. You know what I mean? Like, if you're the only person in your industry that wants to charge X amount, and everybody else is charging Y amount, then you have to figure out, okay, what am I offering that is way better or way more that can justify that X amount?
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, we are still a price point industry. People still shop around for the cheapest property manager, and they expect us to do 40
everything
other jobs other than, manage their property for the same amount.
Right. Yeah. And that, I think that's one of the reasons too, why a lot of the people we work with will do lease only, but they don't want to do lease only, because even people that do that think they're going to get your full service property management after the tenant is placed, because people don't like to read. They just know that they contacted somebody and something happened.
And one of the things that I learned, and this is one of the reasons I love NARPM and I love NARPM events, because literally 5 minutes in the bar, having a drink with another property manager, gave me a light bulb idea of, my lease beforehand for placements was exactly the same as the lease that everybody else gets, which means my name is all over it. Lighthouse Cove is everywhere in that lease. And I was like, wait, but I'm not managing this house.
Nope.
The owner is managing this.
But the tenants might think you're managing it.
Tenants may absolutely think I'm managing it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I came home and changed it all. Not only did I change that, I literally made a fillable PDF that the owners have to fill out for the lease now. No. Well, what do you think I should charge for a renewal fee? I don't know. I'm not managing the property. You are. So you can figure that out. You can manage
the property if you want us
absolutely.
to.
Oh, well, should I do this? Oh, I don't know. I'm not managing the property. You are. That's really going to be depending on what you want to do. Well, do I have to be available after hours for maintenance? Yeah, you kind of do. Like, if your water heater blows up at 11 o'clock at night, you're not going to want that water to just sit in the property till the next day. Yeah. Well, what would you do? Well, if I managed your property, I could totally take care of that.
Yeah.
But there was a lot that we changed because I was like, wait a minute, this is confusing.
Wow.
We'd never had an issue, just so you know, like it wasn't like we had a major issue and then changed it. It was just a light bulb brought by, it was Brian Felt, by the way, from San Antonio, so I can give him credit.
Shout out to Brian.
Shout out to Brian. It was him that he said it, and I was like, and he'll back me up. I was literally in the bar. It was him and I and Todd Orshard. And I was like, I'm going to message my person that's back at the office right now to do this right away. And I did. I saw it on my phone. I was like, we're changing this effective immediately.
On your big phone. You're always on your big phone, sending back information.
I never, ever get away from that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were talking about how whenever you make a change, you lose about 10% of your clients just because of whatever reason. But I'm thinking, given that you care a lot about the kinds of owners and kinds of properties you're bringing into your business, how often do you fire owners because of whatever reason, their property, their attitude? When you buy a company, do you notice like a certain percent that you typically get rid of because it's typically not a good fit? And how do you like tell them without pissing them off?
Well, it usually will take a while. It'll take a while for that to happen. Like, I don't think I've ever bought a company or acquired any contracts, and like within like the first couple of weeks, I'm like, oh, you gotta go. You know, It usually takes between 6 months to a year before you kind of really feel somebody out. Some people will show their ass pretty quickly, you know what I mean? But other people it'll be like the first time something with maintenance happens at the house.
Okay.
And then they really are like, oh, but my cousin can put in that water heater for $30 on Sunday, and you know, something like that. The first time maybe you have to place a tenant for somebody, like let's say they had an existing tenant, the tenant moved out, and then, you know, they're like, oh, well, can I pick my tenant? I only want tenants that are like this or like that. And, you know, they want to be all micromanaging over that process. So it takes a while. So I don't know that I would have a really good like amount that I have fired. How easy is it to fire? We probably don't fire owners enough. And to be honest, probably in the last 6 months, we haven't fired a lot of owners, but that's because we also are paying out security deposits every month out of my pocket, because when I bought the last property management company, she took about $60,000 of security deposits with her when she moved.
What?
Yeah. So we've been holding on to owners in the last 6 months because financially we have to right now.
Is that the lawsuit you were talking about?
Yep.
So the previous owner just ran away.
So she didn't run away per se. So 2017, negotiated this purchase, did what I thought was my due diligence. The numbers that she showed me ahead of time, everything looked up, looked good. The books looked fine. I didn't do as deep of a dive in the books, to be honest with you, as I should have. I trusted her. She was an ARPA member. She was a colleague. She had been actually my secretary on a committee for a regional conference. Like, I knew this person. There was nothing in my mind that said that she would be this type of a person. I spent a lot of time with her before we finalized this contract. I went and looked at the properties. Like, I went to the office. We spent a lot of time together. And it wasn't until probably a month after the sale had been completed that my accounting manager was like, these books aren't, like, what the check that she gave us, that's security deposit trust account, and what's in Appfolio, these aren't matching up. And I was like, oh, like a couple $100. She's like, no, like, and at first we thought it was like about $110,000. We were able to find some money that had been miscoded. You know what I mean? You know, if you put a wrong GL code in something, it disappears, like, from where it's supposed to be and ends up somewhere else. So we found some of the money, and then I had to hire forensic accountants. I hired APM help to find how much money was really missing. We had to literally go through every lease and figure out, what does the lease say the deposit was? because she also had last month's rent in there, and some of them had non-refundable pet fees plus a pet deposit. So we had to literally go through every single lease, paper lease, and have a spreadsheet, old school spreadsheet, to figure out, okay, what money did these tenants pay in at the beginning? Where did it go? Some of it was miscoded, like some of last month's rent was miscoded as deposits. That's where some of the money was. Some non-refundable pet fees were counted as pet deposits. So, you know, it was a very tedious year that it took us. It was probably less than a year. I filed the lawsuit last summer. So it was probably 8 or 9 months of a lot of money paid out on my part to try to figure out where the money was and how much money was actually missing. But once that security trust account hit $0, there's still people moving out every month. There's still properties that are getting sold, you know what I mean, to tenants, or there's still owners that are, you know, selling their multiplexes to other people. I have to come up with that money. In December, we had to come up with $8,000 because one of the owners sold his fourplex. So I had to come up with $8,000 that I had not allocated for giving out of my own money. You know, this month, last month, it averages, some months are better than others because nobody's moving out. But like the summer months are going to be rough because that's when everybody moves. So yeah, it's good times.
Yeah, I mean, that I never really thought that happened in real life, you know?
I mean,
It's ridiculous. So I think the lesson here is, you know, if you were to buy another property management company, or to whoever out there is thinking of buying a property management company, yeah, you check the books and they look good and you know the person, you kind of have this gut feel, but I think you have to treat every acquisition the same. You have to kind of like when you do your inspections in the property, right? This person may look like they know what they're doing. They're very organized, clean people, but you still have to go through the hundreds of pages, 400 pictures to really make sure you dot all your I's, you cross all your T's. It's the same, especially when you're buying a company, right? You might end up like this, having to shell out money on your own to fix something that shouldn't be broken.
No. Well, I put together, and one of the things, like, I really had to have a come to Jesus with myself, be like, okay, there's got to be something good that comes from this. Do you know what I mean? Something has to come from this, or else it's just not good. So I put together a class that I taught it in San Diego at the national conference, and it's literally called How to Poorly Purchase a Property Management Company. And it talks about all three companies and all the things that I did wrong. You know, and there are much smarter people in NARPM who buy and sell property management companies like their cups of coffee, and it's really easy for them and they never have a problem, and it's awesome, and I love watching their successes, and it's cool and it's great. Unfortunately, I am not one of them.
You keep talking about how, oh, there are a lot of smarter people than me buying companies, and, you know, I just talk about my mistakes. I think it's really, you know, it takes a lot of courage to talk about the things you did wrong. I bet all those people who are experts in buying property management companies failed a lot before they even came up with how they're doing it now, but they don't want to talk about it.
And, you know, and maybe that is like, it's kind of funny you say that. That's how I started talking at NARPM at all. Like when you're standing in front of 100 people, basically telling them all the ways in which you suck and you screwed up, it is such a humbling experience. But then afterwards, for months, I would get phone calls and messages and emails about how we were about to buy a company when we heard you speak. And because you said this, we looked into it and we didn't buy it because it would have been a bad idea, or what you said could happen, it was actually going to happen. And so the fact that, yeah, it's been a complete like year and a half of yuck for me, but I'm able to help other people. I mean, that's cool. It doesn't make the yuck any less.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it does give me the hope that, you know, maybe I can help somebody else from doing it. One of the things a lot of people have said they wouldn't even thought of, and I didn't think of, is to check out the person with the Department of Licensing. I wouldn't have thought to check the Department of Licensing. She had an open investigation against her for fraud from the Department of Licensing.
You checked that before or after the purchase?
No, I didn't check it before because I would have known. No, I found out when the Department of Licensing sent me a letter
I mean, in this situation, well, for example, the security deposits, what could you have done? What would you have looked at? Because you said you looked at Appfolio, you looked at another report, they didn't add up, but that was after the fact?
It was after the fact. I trusted that the reports that she gave me were
real, were right.
Real. Because she wouldn't, and this is the thing, your gut is always right. She wouldn't give me access to her Appfolio until the sale was closed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, and I'll be honest with you, it was the middle of the summer. We were super hella busy too. And so it didn't have the amount of focus that I should have given it. And I trusted her. And so, shame on me, absolutely. But
you want to do that. It's human nature. You want to be able to trust people.
You do. But now what I would do is I would have APM help, who are amazing, by the way, if you guys know them. They're a great company. I would have them audit the books before I bought anything. Before I even thought about buying anything, I would be like, okay, you have to give me authorization to have APM help look into your books and do like as deep of a dive as they need to do in order to find out and make sure that all the money adds up. I want your bank statements. I want access. Like, you can give somebody just read-only access to your bank statements. I want that, and I want APM help to have access to your accounts, and everything has to match up to the penny.
Is that kind of step one that you do before you consider?
That will be.
Yeah, you're right. I know. So will you buy?
And I don't know.
Maybe.
I know Adam's in the back going, no.
Yeah.
Or maybe you can just spend that money on marketing.
Or
that's the thing.
Spend it on me. I mean, it's whatever. Whatever.
Spend it on anybody, it would be on, my other daughters.
Right. Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know that I would. Like, it's always there, because I'll tell you, it's exciting. Like, it's exciting, like bringing on 100, 200 properties, like boom, and going from, 200 properties to like 500 properties. Like, there's a lot of adrenaline that's involved in all of that. There's also a lot of work. That's a lot of tenants to onboard.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, obviously we are marketers. We have been on the account management team at our marketing company. And if I was onboarding 100 new clients at one time, forget about it, let alone properties and all of the paperwork that comes along with it, all of the relationships. So it's like, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah, because your contracts, most of the time, like, let's say even if you have 4 different tiers of service, that's only 4 contracts that you're dealing with. When you have 200 properties, that's 200 completely different properties that you're having to bring on and do descriptions for, and do we have pictures? And then what if that person used a different property management software than you use? Then you have to do integration, and that's a horrific pain.
Everyone is unique. There's no copy and paste. There's no duplicating work. Wow. Yeah.
No, it really isn't. So would I ever buy one again? I might. I would nobody's going to want to sell their company to me in the future, though, because I'll be like, okay, here's my 49-point inspection list.
Can't get anything past Chrysztyna.
Yeah. So, it might. They're like, I never say never, but it's just not on my radar right now.
Just like Justin Bieber. Never mind.
Not on her radar.
No.
Yeah, he's also not on my radar.
But what is on your radar is, what's that music festival you're going to?
Oh yeah, you're going to SoCal, going to see some music.
I am. I'm going to. We call it it's basically a bucket list concert for my friend and I. So we grew up listening to like 80s and 90s R&B music, like that was our thing. And so this concert we're going to is Isley Brothers, Guy, Jodeci, Belle Biv DeVoe, Keith Sweat, John B, Genuine, and I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's it. So yeah, it's called the Mother's Day Love Jam. Such a bad name.
I love it.
Yeah. So I'll be in California for Mother's Day, and everybody's like, but it's Mother's Day. I was like, right. It's the one day a year where I get to choose whatever I want to do, because I'm a mom. I want to spend it away from my kids. I think that's fair.
Yes. Very fair.
Granted, my kids are, 19 and 13. Like, Sasha is 13, and so she'll be spending the day with her mom. And my kid is like, you do whatever you want. So it's all good.
Bless her soul.
Yeah.
I think the last thing is like, what would be like the 3 biggest tips you could give to somebody that's looking to buy a company? And you kind of covered them already based on the biggest mistakes, but just to summarize, what would be those 3 main things to look at?
Number 1, trust your gut. Your gut is hardly ever wrong. And there was red flags and my gut was screaming at me, but I was too busy and too excited about getting into this other market, because that was the whole reason I bought it. I wanted a footprint in a different county. And so because I was like so all about that, I didn't listen to my gut. And it ended up, you know, really, really biting me in the end. That would be number 1. Number 2, absolutely hire somebody. If accounting is not like what you are absolutely the best at, spend the money and hire somebody else to look at the books. Like really, really look at the books. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, but it'll be worth every single penny, I guarantee. And then the third is make sure that how they do business is how you're willing to do business. Because
Culture fit kind of thing, operations
culture,
fit.
operations, everything. Like she was all paper. Literally boxes and boxes and boxes of paper that I spent the first 4 months sifting through every night and every weekend trying to figure out what was necessary to keep and what I could throw away. Like I had like 50,000 bonfires basically getting rid of the eternity mountains of paperwork that she had. Because even though we had the same property management software, we didn't use it the same way.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's right there. Culture, absolutely. Go with that person when they do a property management interview and see how are they selling their company. You know what I mean? Like what are their base tenets? What are their ethics? Like why are they doing what they're doing? And if that aligns, it doesn't have to be perfectly aligned with you, but if it aligns a little bit, then you're able to work off of that. But if not, if literally they're out there bullying people to use them or bargain basementing their fees, why would you want to do that to yourself?
Yeah.
Because that's the culture that they've created. And now that's the culture that you're going to have to perpetuate, or you're going to have more losses than you would have originally even accounted for, because these people were trained, because we have to train our clients. They're trained to believe and want and know a certain thing. And now you're going to have to retrain them to do something completely different and believe in something completely different. So that's a lot of time and energy on somebody's part. So make sure that those things align.
Well, thank you, Chrysztyna. This was very helpful, especially for us too. We get so many clients asking us about acquisitions that we're always doing research and trying to make sure that we give the best advice. And I'll definitely be sure to send people your way if they ask me questions.
For real. No, absolutely. Before anybody buys anything, please shoot me an email, send me a message on Facebook, call me, whatever. I will be more than happy to answer your questions and to tell you all the things that I screwed up in the hopes that you don't do the same.
Wow. You're the best. That is the nicest thing ever. Do you have, it might be on the NARPM website, but are there any slides or anything from your talk last year?
Yeah, there should be slides.
We'll try to find those and link that in our description, and so we can put it there.
Yeah, if you can't find them, let me know and I'll send them to you.
Because I think that's invaluable. I think definitely listening to this is really helpful, but that probably just deep dives a little bit more into some things to look at.
I created my own PowerPoint for it, which I was very proud of because it was the first one that I did all by myself, because I'm so low tech when it comes to that. But it's pretty good.
Yeah, that was it for me. I hope all of our listeners enjoyed. And please let us know if there are any other topics you want us to do. We would love to answer any questions you have and bring in people that will help you learn how to manage your business better, how to market your business better. Just anything you need, let us know. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Chrysztyna.